Hello and thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today I'm going to do a deep dive into the Scorpio full moon, which occurs on the 27th of April at 4:32 a.m. Universal Central Time. As usual, my chart is based on Greenwich in London, which gives us an ascendant in Pisces. Now the sun, of course, is in Taurus, opposing the moon in Scorpio. So we could say that the Scorpio full moon is one of the most intense full moons of the whole year. And there is some evidence to support that this year, because Uranus, the planet of rebelliousness, is very close to the sun. You can see on the screen that Uranus is at 10 degrees, the sun's at 7 degrees 6 minutes, as is the moon. So that's going to create a lot of electricity around this full moon. So as ever, what I'm going to do is explain not just the influence of the Scorpio full moon, but the wider impact of the chart when the event occurs. And that's going to provide the backdrop over the next 2 weeks. And then I'm going to describe how this will be for each of the 12 zodiac signs. So please stay with me, although I will drop some timestamps below. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I'd be honoured if you did so now. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. If you'd like to have a discussion with me on a one-to-one basis to understand your situation more deeply, please check out my testimonials below. Or if you want to access more serious astrology in an affordable way, please check out my horoscope personal reports. Also below, you can get a 12-month forecast, a character analysis, 30% off special offer, and the link is there too. So you can see on the screen we have that a position of the sun, and also the ascendant at 26 degrees 2 minutes in Pisces, and it's also very close to Neptune, which is just tucked up in the 12th house. This is particularly significant on this event, because if you look at the top of the chart at 28 degrees, we have the midheaven, which is how we're facing the world at large, in Sagittarius. So we have a square between the ascendant and the midheaven, but also Neptune and the midheaven, and Neptune is very sensitive on that first house, even though it's just tucked up behind in the 12th house. So what does that tell us? Well, the energy of Taurus is about a degree of stability. It's about the foundations in our world. It can be about our resources. It can be about sensuality. It can be about good food and good wine. And this particular chart sees the sun in the first house, which is very Aries-like. It's very initiating. So this can be pushing us all, I feel, to either consume the good things in life, because maybe we've been denied some social opportunities because of the COVID lockdown, but also it's about getting back on the front foot in terms of our income. But you can also see that Venus and Mercury are both, along with Black Moon Lilith, in the sign of Taurus as well. So this puts a big stellium in this sign, and I think having Venus and Mercury just 1 degree apart means our longing, especially as they're in the second house, which is very Taurus-like, our longing to consume those good things can be very strong. But because Neptune's on that ascendant, a little bit of escapism is definitely going to be in the mix over the next couple of weeks. But on the other side of the heaven, the passions of Scorpio is about transformation, and this is about understanding things at a deeper level. So if we think about the position of the sun in Taurus pragmatically, we're thinking about the Scorpio energy as longer term finances. So that can be things like property, insurances, pensions, investments, this kind of stuff. So having Uranus very close to the sun but opposing the moon can create a rebelliousness. Maybe we're going to be pushed to be much more innovative in our approach. That comes from Uranus. Or maybe we want to separate ourselves from a situation where we have been very invested, and that could be a personal relationship, and perhaps because our attitudes around values or money or even sex are diverging, a relationship could change on the back of this particular chart. Also, you can see that Saturn's at 12 degrees in Aquarius in the 12th house, so very psychological. It is squaring with Venus. So I think if there is a weak relationship around those three areas of intimacy, money or values, it can come under pressure on the back of this full moon. Now Saturn, of course, has been broadly in a right angle with Uranus since about halfway through January, and it will be so through till July. And this is creating an inherent tension anyway for us all, because they're both the rulers of Aquarius. One's about free-spiritedness, Uranus, but it's in an area of resistance, Taurus, which doesn't like change. And we've got Saturn in Aquarius, which does like change to some degree, but also can cling on to the things that it knows more than people sometimes recognize with Aquarius energy. Also, if we take the midpoint between the moon and also the sun in Taurus, it's actually at 7 degrees Aquarius, and therefore is also being squared by Uranus, and it's pretty close to that Saturn position. So I think in general, our desire to go out, have a good time, spend money freely, appreciate the more physical and material plane of life is being challenged by the more psychological and even spiritual implications of everything we've all collectively been through. So Neptune on the ascendant can dissolve our sense of identity. We're not quite sure how to be during this period of time. I think this is absolutely right, especially if we've lost money, our income sources have dried up, the job we used to have is no longer solid, maybe have come to an end because it was in hospitality or some kind of profession which is very much linked to the service industry, which requires on people spending money on enjoying themselves. So I think there's going to be an appetite to go out and have that fun, an appetite to escape from life's realities, but we are being asked to consider carefully the reality of our situation. So just to summarize, therefore, so we have the energy of Taurus is very much about enjoying the good things in life, being conscious of stability. Uranus is pushing us to free ourselves from situations that don't work, but that can push us outside our comfort zone. We have Scorpio on the other side of the heavens, which is about being free-spirited and moving. Mars actually does forge a very positive angle to the position of the moon. And so if we do want to make some changes, especially around a close relationship, Mars is seeing us being a bit more prickly, a bit more outspoken about how we feel. That's entirely possible. But with the Taurus energy about maintaining the status quo, this is a full moon like no other, because it's really pushing us to transform our thinking around our values, the way we consume things, and the identity of us all is under challenge by Neptune being on that first house, and with Saturn squaring up to the Sun, to Uranus, and the midpoint being on Saturn. I don't feel that things are going to be flowing quite at the pace we want, but there is going to be a desire to get out there, to have, moments of merriment, moments of consuming material goods, buying clothes, because we want to give ourselves a makeover, which very much comes from having Neptune on that ascendant. So some kind of escapism is going on at the moment from perhaps the cruel reality of what we've all been through, but something is in the works that's shaken us up. Now I have to say, there is a fixed star called Hamel, which is very close to the position of the Sun. It kind of lies in between the Sun and Uranus. And this is a fixed star that's not particularly lucky. It can speak of violence, cruelty, and brutality. And we are seeing some posturing on the world stage as I record this video, some military maneuvers alongside the Ukrainian border. That doesn't look good, because the very forceful influence of Uranus in the mix can see some very sudden moves. And what we need at the moment is a degree of stability and calmness to deal with the global pandemic and to try to get the more material side of life, the economy, functioning more efficiently than it has been. Now, please stay with me as I share each of the 12 zodiac sign forecasts. Now, for you, Aries, this is a full moon, which is asking you to be very conscious of balancing the books. And if you're someone who naturally likes to splash out money, many of us do from time to time, this could be a little bit confining. You may still get those impulses. It wouldn't be a surprise if you are trying to find somewhere to live or you're wanting to spend some money on your home environment. There could be some challenges in your friendship sector. People that perhaps have been important to you in the past may be not necessarily meeting your expectations. Perhaps someone's values are not quite as in alignment with yours as you may have previously thought. Now, Taurus, for you, this is very much about your need to be an individual. And because Pluto has been pushing you, along with Saturn and Jupiter in recent years, to be much more expansive in your worldview and open to change. If you have changed something, I think now the next couple of weeks is dealing with the reality of that change. And it could be that just toggling the need for a greater personal freedom against the expectations that others have of you, or managing your work or professional interest, is really part of the calibration that you need to flex to at this time. But if you want to be very individualistic or creative in your approach, this is a brilliant chart and can see you coming up with some fantastic ideas. Now, for you, Gemini, this is a big challenge, this particular full moon, I feel, because there's a lot of energy in your 12th house. I feel you could be feeling on edge. There may be a lot of psychological things working around. Someone may confront you with a version of their truth which doesn't conform to your truth, which you may find deeply hurtful and wounding. I can only be really truthful about this. This, for you, is probably the most awkward of all the zodiac signs to deal with. But what it can do, this particular lunation, is give you a lot of encouragement to try to get in touch with the more sensitive and emotional side of your nature. Because if you are someone who tends to be very logical in your approach, you try to rationalize everything, this is a full moon not like none other. It's really saying, look, take a crash course in embracing your emotions, your shadow side, your psychology, your fears and anxieties. And don't be hung up about it. Actually, this is preparing the way for you to move into your energy as we go into May. Your ruler Mercury moves into your sign on the 4th, followed by Venus on the 9th, followed by the Sun on the 20th. So things are going to be heading back in your direction, and you're going to move into the present a lot more as May goes on. But this next couple of weeks is asking you to just deal with some tender issues that perhaps you've been finding a bit yourself a bit reluctant to look at. Now, Cancer, with Mars in your sign, this is giving you a lot of encouragement to be very direct and to embrace your power as an individual. And if we look at the cluster of energy in Taurus, there's a lot to do with your longer term future, also friendships and group alliances. And some kind of collective effort may be part of the plan that's set to unfold in the weeks to come. And if you're someone who is open to cooperating with others, this can be very, very good. But I also feel that there may be a sense that if your personal time is being pinched, or you feel that someone's stopping you being the free spirit you really want to be, you could push back on that, and that could be around a friendship or a love relationship. Now, Leo, having Mars in your 12th house is quite awkward. And then having this stellium of energy in Taurus in a very visible zone makes it very difficult to disguise how you really feel. If there is something tender bubbling around in the background, having the moon in your 4th house suggests that it could come to the surface, and perhaps unexpectedly, with the energy of Uranus so close to the sun and so close to an opposition with the moon. So I think this can be a little bit of an unsettling time, but if you're wanting to go for a new job, set your goals and intentions around bringing something to pass, as long as you're prepared to accept that there could be some sudden changes, then there may be something that gives you a chance to thrive quite quickly. But somehow or another, I feel there may be a tender issue that's suddenly going to come into the open that you may need to look at this time. Now, Virgo, for you, such a clustering of energy in your 9th house is really pushing you to widen your horizons and be more outgoing, more adventurous. It may see you very, very keen to travel. Now, that might seem such an obvious thing to say when so many of us have been spending time penned in, but for you more than any other sign, this chart does point towards bringing greater spontaneity and variety to your situation. Whether you need to travel closer to home because of circumstances, or you're able to do something further away, is down to you. What I will say is that you could find yourself thinking about a different job as well. With that midpoint in Aquarius, Saturn and Jupiter in Aquarius too, some changes around work may be needed if the work that you're doing is just no longer fulfilling for you. Now, Libra, having such a collection of energy in your 8th house is very, very exciting when it comes to your ability to draw more sensual energy to you. And your magnetism can be very increased by Uranus being so close to this polar axis. But it also can see that part of you that does love a bit of luxury, really wanting to just splash out, live in the moment, not worry too much about the consequences, but just be conscious that there probably will be consequences. But I can see that if you're in a romantic relationship where you don't really feel that it's working, there's anything to do with control or jealousy, that kind of stuff is really not working for you on this particular full moon. So some tender issues around that stuff could come into the open. And with Mars in a very visible part of your scope, if you do need to speak out and be more assertive, someone might be quite surprised by how blunt you can be. Scorpio, for you, this lunation is about relationships, top to bottom. And if there is a relationship that isn't working, you may decide to leave it or to be much more brutally honest about why you don't like it. And it's not just the fact that the energy around the relationship itself might not be as sweet as you would like, because Saturn's in such a powerful location on this particular full moon. If you are really feeling emotionally unhappy, it's going to be very, very difficult to sustain this. So if there's something that's really been bumping along the bottom, I think it does need to be discussed over this next fortnight. Sagittarius, what we do for a living, how we organise our lives, how we gain nutrition, the overall structure of our existence is really at the heart of what this particular full moon's about. But at work, there may be someone who's not a fan of yours, but they won't necessarily tell you to your face. I think the potential for some sharp words being exchanged, but privately, so in other words, behind your back, is quite strong. Just be conscious of that. You need to be very much on your mettle when it comes to going through the processes of your role, because if you're not quite being as efficient as you might be, a competitor, a rival, someone who's a bit crafty and doesn't share that more honest side of your nature, maybe someone you really have to be mindful of. And with Neptune in such a tender position, your emotional situation at the moment is quite fragile, I feel. And so try to be as organised as possible and don't give anyone any opportunity to attack your performance. Now, Capricorn, there is a lovely link between Pluto still in your sign and Jupiter. It's semi-sextile, which is pretty good. That suggests that something you're trying to change in a creative or imaginative way can have some kind of financial benefit to you. But I don't think this is a time to be too rash about speculation. So if someone offers you an opportunity and you're really tempted to splash some money on it, I really would think through things carefully, get some professional advice if necessary. The potential for you to be rather un-Capricorn-like and rather reactionary in terms of your approach is actually very strong. But because of the role of Saturn, your ruler, you could be quickly reminded if you overdo it on your cost base. So just bear that in mind. Now, there is, for you, Aquarius, an opportunity to change something about where you're living. This has been brewing for some while because of the square between Uranus in your 4th solar house and Saturn in your 1st house. So really, for most of this year, but potentially for some Aquarius people, you may have felt very restless within your home or within your family even since the middle of May 2018, and there may have been some kind of rebellion that you've staged during that time. Well, I think it can all come up to the boil now, and if you do need to do that move, it can happen, but it can happen very quickly, and it can be a little bit destabilizing and in the short term rather chaotic. But you know, once you're in that abode or you make the changes to the existing one you really need to do, I think it's going to be really lovely for you. Finally, Pisces. Well, so much energy in your 3rd house, which is all about how you think. And this can see you needing to move around quite a lot or stimulate your mind. You may buy yourself some new technology. But also, if you're someone who's very adhered to your daily routines, someone else may want to change something, someone who's close to you. They may want to change something rather more radical, and you might not see this coming. For you, there may be some very deeper emotional issues that still are holding you back. The flow that you need to really feel part of to thrive is just being inhibited by Saturn being tucked away in the 12th house of this particular chart, but for you, the 12th house of your equal house sun sign situation. So that can point towards you being lethargic or being anxious or not quite making the moves that you need to make, and that could leave you feeling a bit exhausted as well. So you are given some support with Venus and Mercury in that conjunction, and they're kind of saying to you, you can have conversations, you can talk things through, discuss things with people. You also have Mars in a very positive location, but I just think you need to overcome some hidden blockages to really flow. And if you can overcome those and you are at peace with yourself, things can move very quickly, and there's a lot of excitement and nervous energy around your situation. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Good luck and goodbye.